All right, welcome to the White House, everyone. My name is Eddie Lee. I'm the Associate Director in the Office of Public Engagement here at the White House, and I have the honor of serving as the White House liaison to the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And today we're excited to host the White House Champions of Change event, in which we get to honor some of the most inspiring AAPI leaders from around the country. We've been waiting for this day for a long time, and we're so excited to have them here with us. And on behalf of this administration, let me start off by saying thank you so much for all the work that you're doing across this country. Let's give them a round of applause. So how did we get to this point today? Well, about 6 months ago, we launched the first ever What's Your Story video challenge, in which we asked the country to share their stories with us. And we really didn't know what to expect, but over the course of the last couple of months, we received over 200 videos and 35 essays from around the country about different aspects of our society, from different geographical locations and different issues. And simply put, we were all inspired by all of the work that you all have been doing. The personal stories, the powerful stories, they show us and they remind us about the work that we're doing here in this White House, and they inspire us to keep on pushing for all the work that you all are doing across this country. We as a community are resilient, as we've seen in these videos and these essays. We as a community have overcome many odds. And we as a community have taken the successes and the opportunities that we have been given and turned around and helped those that are underserved and need a voice in our own communities. And so for that, we are very grateful for all of these champions that are on the stage today. Today we get to meet some amazing people. We get to meet a Korean-American comedian who channeled the power of entertainment into a force of empowerment around this country. We get to learn about a basketball program in Philadelphia that taught our youth not only the art of a sport, but what it means to grow up to become men and women of character. We get to meet a group of LGBT leaders who found the courage to speak out not only for themselves, for millions of people around this country who need a voice. A Samoan spoken word artist who used the power of her words to speak out on behalf of LGBT, Pacific Islander, and the women community. An Indian American artist who has created some of the most beautiful illustrations and managed to share the stories of our everyday lives in a single frame. A Vietnamese American essay contest winner who has so eloquently shared her story of her personal struggle, and in doing so shined a very important light on the plague of mental health in the AAPI community. And an organization in Boston who has given immigrants an opportunity to chase the American dream despite the numerous barriers that they might face. These are our champions. They stood up for the underserved in our community, and today they stand here on the stage as an example to all of us. Today we're going to be very excited and delighted to hear some of their stories in person, and we're also going to have a chance to hear from White House officials from across this building and this administration. The first person that I'd like to introduce to you all today is a personal hero of mine along with my mom, one of the two folks that I look up to very greatly, and he is someone that has really championed these issues in this White House. He is the assistant to the president, the cabinet secretary, and the co-chair of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And we are very excited to have him here. He's a fierce champion for these issues, and as a co-chair of the initiative, he has asked countless times, what can I do more for this community? What can this administration do more for this community? And what can this president do more to help empower the folks around this country? So with that, let me introduce to you Mr. Chris Liu.
Thank you. Are they going to stand while I'm talking, Eddie? We don't want them to sit down or anything? Welcome to the White House, and congratulations to all the wonderful champions of change on this remarkable accomplishment. First, I'd like to thank Eddie for that very kind introduction. I first met Eddie a long time ago back in the campaign, back in New Hampshire. It was very cold back there in December of 2007. And the first time I met Eddie, I knew this kid was going places. We are so proud to have him in the White House. And this entire What's Your Story effort is really his brainchild. And he brought such incredible energy and enthusiasm and determination to get this done. So let's just give Eddie a big round of applause as well. So as Eddie said, I wear two different hats in the administration. My day job is helping the president to manage the federal departments and agencies, and my night and weekend job is co-chairing the White House initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We are very fortunate today to have I think I see two of our commissioners, and let me just ask them to stand up. Sepha's right here, and Hector's right here as well. Just recognize them for their service. Both of the jobs that I have in the White House have the same primary mission: to make sure that the federal government works more efficiently and more effectively for all of our customers, all of you, the American people. To do that, it's critical for us to get around the country and hear about the issues that you're facing in your lives, and to hear from you how you want the federal government to help improve your lives. That's why over the past 2.5 years, the hardworking staff and commissioners of the initiative have been crisscrossing the country. We've gone to 50 different cities, talked to 25,000 different people gatherings like this just to share ideas. Now, this face-to-face dialogue that we have is just one way that we communicate with all of you. We hope you will follow the very active Facebook page we have. We have a wonderful website. You can also follow us on Twitter as well. And I would be remiss if I did not make a shameless plug for my Twitter handle at this point. Now, I have to admit, I did a function like this. Eddie had me do a function like this 3 months ago, and before that event, I literally had no idea what Twitter was. So we set up the account that morning, and we challenged everybody in the room to help me get to 100 followers by the end of the day. And we pretty much did it. And so 3 months later, I think we're at 730. And so I'm going to challenge everyone in the room to get us to 800 by the end of the day. It's Chris Liu 44 for the 44th, being the 44th president. So I hope you will follow us, and it's a great way to stay on top of the important work of the initiative. So as we've traveled around the country over the past 3 years, we've heard from folks about the different challenges that they're facing in their lives. And just to give you an example, 2 weeks ago, we were in Atlanta holding a forum for Asian Americans in the Southeast region. And in this wonderfully diverse audience of 400 people, we had everything from recent Bhutanese immigrants who did not speak English. We had upper middle class college students from Emory University. We had advocates who had been spending their entire careers helping to improve people's lives. We had small business owners who ran everything from nail salons to high-tech businesses. We met from AAPIs who literally had traveled overnight by bus from places like Mississippi and North Carolina and Miami to come tell us their stories. And all of these stories had a very common theme to them, which is a concern that the American dream that has just been a hallmark of our country was kind of slipping away from people. So you see, whether you're a recent immigrant or whether your folks have been in this country for generations and generations, you know that there's always been a basic promise in this country. If you work hard, you can do well enough to buy a home, to raise your family, to send them to college, to save for your retirement. And that was certainly the case with my parents. My father worked as an electrical engineer for the government. My mom was a bookkeeper. They didn't make a lot of money, but they did well enough that we had a comfortable house. They were able to send both myself and my brother to college and law school, and they were able to save for their future. These days, unfortunately, that dream is becoming more and more out of reach for far too many people. For the past couple of decades, the economic security of the folks in this country have been eroding. And while certainly there have been people that have done well during this period of time, the vast majority of folks have been struggling. They've been struggling with costs like healthcare, costs like education that keep rising, and paychecks that keep shrinking. So to be sure, our community has done very well. Although we may not be the model minority that we're often portrayed as in the press, our community is certainly, as a whole, wealthier, more established, better educated. But as we all know, and as the folks up here on stage know, our community is not a monolithic one. Let me just read you a few statistics. 250,000 AAPIs have been out of work for more than 6 months, and AAPIs suffer from disproportionately longer periods of unemployment than any other racial group. 1 out of every 6 Asian Americans lack health insurance, and they suffer disproportionately from illnesses like hepatitis B. Southeast Asian Americans have some of the highest rates of poverty in our country, 38% among 30% of Cambodians. Even among Chinese Americans in places like New York's Chinatown, 35% of children live in poverty. In the area of education, we have children of opportunity and children of need. Asian Americans make up a disproportionate number of the students at top-notch universities. Yet when you dig into the numbers, you find a different story. Among Southeast Asian Americans, the high school dropout rate is staggering. 40% Hmong, 38% of Laotian, 35% of Cambodians. And as we've traveled around the country over the past couple of years, hearing these stories, much like the stories that were told to a young community organizer named Barack Obama when he traveled around the south side of Chicago, we also know that government can't be the answer to all of these problems. The problems are too extensive and government's resources are too scarce. That's why today's gathering, and that's why the work of the people on stage is so important. They know, we know, that change doesn't happen just in Washington. It happens all around the country. But all of you already know that. The champions of change who are here today represent thousands of Asian American and Pacific Islander leaders who are making a difference in their communities all around the country. And most of them don't receive the recognition and honor that they deserve. These champions have demonstrated what it means to be a force of inspiration and a force of good in their communities. I've watched your videos, I've read your essays, and I have to say that I was incredibly moved by them. They have brought an important human element to the work that we do here in the White House, and they remind us of the importance of keep going on the work that we're doing. It's because of the work of these champions that the AAPI community is as strong as it is today. Whether it's in LGBT outreach, immigration, education, civil rights, community development, youth empowerment, the arts, all of the different areas that you all are working on, these champions have worked tirelessly to improve their communities. And it is their leadership that will enable us to better address the various needs of the underserved going forward. We are delighted to have all of you at the White House, and we honor and we are privileged to know of you and to share the work that you are doing. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for spending your time sharing your stories, and thank you for what you're doing each and every day to make the American dream a reality for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And let me just say that in every single speech I give from now on, I'll be sure to include his Twitter handle. And I've been making sure to plug that into everything that I do. So it's one of my talking points, I guarantee it. At this time, I just want to take a moment to introduce each of our champions to all of you. These are ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and that's what this Champions of Change program is all about. It's about shining a spotlight on these folks, not only because they are amazing people, but because of the work that they're doing is so valuable to the strength and the power of our community and this country as a whole, in allowing our folks in this country to achieve the American dream. And I could go on and on about their bios, but I've had a really difficult time actually dwindling that down to a couple sentences, but I'll do my best. The first person I want to introduce you all to is Teresa Siagatonu, who is a spoken word artist, an arts educator, and community organizer from the Bay Area. She is currently the project director for the Pacific Islander Education and Retention Project at UCLA, and her emergence into the spoken word world as a queer Samoan woman and activist has granted her the opportunities to perform on stages around the country. Let's give her a round of applause. Next, we have the Philadelphia Suns, represented today by Harry Leong and Rebecca Chin. The Philadelphia Suns is a volunteer-led youth organization which focuses on community building by offering educational, cultural, social, athletic, and service opportunities for Asian American youth. The Suns serve more than 500 Philadelphia youth annually in teaching teamwork through a variety of activities and programs, including sports, volunteer activities, and participating in the traditional Chinese lion dance performances. Let's give them a round of applause. We also have with us the Asian Pride Project, represented today by Elena Chang and Suma Reddy, and I know that there are folks in the audience who also represent this organization. The Asian Pride Project fosters great visibility, pride, and acceptance for all lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Asians and Pacific Islander people and their families, cultural communities, and beyond. The Asian Pride Project is led by a small group of dedicated and passionate leaders of New York City's Asian American LGBT organizations. Let's give them a round of applause. Next, we have the Chinese Immigration Student Leadership Program, led by Chu Huang and Amy Lee. The Chinese Immigrant Student Leadership Program is a pilot leadership program for Chinese immigrant students in the Chinese Sheltered English Instruction Program at Charlestown High School in Boston, Massachusetts. The program seeks to help the students develop as leaders by focusing on building the students' capacity to affect positive changes in their school. And I know that there are also folks in this audience who represent this organization, so thank you all. Next, we have Paul P.K. Kim, who is the founder of Collaboration, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering the community through entertainment. Its main annual event is a talent show which takes place in 15 cities and draws over 20,000 people annually. He is also a stand-up comedian, a regular at the world-famous Laugh Factory in Hollywood, and has performed at over 70 universities. Give him a round of applause. Next, we have Nidhi Chanani, who is an artist who creates illustrations that capture the everyday romantic and whimsical moments in our life. Nidhi connects with a wide audience that is eager to be represented, which demonstrates a need for strong female Asian voices within the arts. Her work inspires aspiring artists, young and old, to pursue creativity and to recognize that art can be their voice and path in life. Let's give her a round of applause. And finally, we have Mylin Vo, who is the winner of the essay contest via her essay, What's in a Name? Currently a doctoral student in clinical psychology, Mylin is developing her skill set to provide culturally responsive services to the underserved, the underrepresented, and the marginalized individuals and families. She is passionate about her profession, rooted in her Vietnamese American immigrant background, and proud of her family history. She hopes to honor her family, teachers, mentors, friends, and many others who have made her and helped her to become what she is today. Let's give her a round of applause. And with that, we're going to transition into our first panel. So for our second panel, I'll dismiss you all to sit down. And I'm also going to introduce our moderator for the first panel, who is Gautam Raghavan. He is my colleague in the Office of Public Engagement, the Associate Director who directs outreach and engagement to the LGBT community. Prior to joining the White House, Gautam served as a Deputy White House Liaison for the U.S. Department of Defense and as the Outreach Lead for the Department of Defense's Don't Ask, Don't Tell working group. Please welcome our next panel. Yep.
Thank you, Eddie. It's an honor to be here. I feel surrounded by greatness. I like that you put me right in the middle. Well, like I said, it's an honor to be here, and we have some time to ask our first group of champions a few questions about their work, what brought them to this place. So I'm going to start with a few questions, but then I hope you'll start thinking about your own questions as well, so that when we turn it over, you're ready to go. So my first question for all of you is really, I'd love to hear about, having seen your videos, that's just sort of a snapshot of who you are and the work that you do. I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, what brings you here? Like, what inspired you to do the work that you do, and what inspired you to participate in this challenge? Do you guys want to start first?
Sure. I'm Harry Leung, and I'm really honored and really blessed to just being recognized for the work that I've been a product of. And I think that being part of the program and having grown up in a program where I was mentored, I was led, I was directed, I was disciplined, those are the type of things that really helped me as an impressionable teen at that time to the person that I am today. So I guess just being part of the program and being placed into a responsibility to care for our next generation, I think that's a big encouragement and big motivation for me to do the work that I do.
Sure. Rebecca.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rebecca. My involvement with the Suns started pretty much the same way Harry, but a little later. I was born in Chinatown, but I grew up kind of out of Chinatown, so was a bit removed from the community, and then decided to join the Suns to just make friends, and that kind of provided this program, this family of people that eventually like shaped my upbringing as a very impressionable teenager. So my work with the Sun mainly comes from wanting to give back just because it's gave me so much.
Tala Falava, good morning. My name is Teresa Siangotanu. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, and the work I do, what you can gather from my video is that I'm a spoken word artist, but I'm also an arts educator. And like my bio said, I also work in college access for the Pacific Islander community, mainly because I come from a community where we grew up really working class, and we grew up where college access wasn't a reality for a lot of the young people in my community. And luckily, I did get to go to college, and I know all the reasons why, and I know who to thank. For example, my dad and my parents, for coming and migrating all the way here from Samoa, just to give us a better life, right? And so I work with young people who constantly doubt themselves that college isn't an option for them because they're not smart enough, they can't make it, they feel incompetent and things like that. And so my work with spoken word poetry and public speaking mixed with college access really helps to integrate the need for youth empowerment in the community that I work with, particularly with the Pacific Islander students that I work with, because we're constantly misrepresented or underrepresented within API spaces, but also just within society. And so I'm here trying to be a voice and create avenues for young people in my community to stand up and speak for themselves too. So.
Hi, as a lesbian South Asian, I began to realize that visibility was extremely important for our communities, for me to accept myself for who I was and for our communities to accept ourselves for each other. And to paraphrase Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, whether we acknowledge it or not, or whether we know it or not, lesbians, bisexuals, gays, and transgenders in our Asian communities are our family, our friends, and our neighbors.
Hi, my name is Elena. I would have to say that for a lot of members for Asian Pride Project, our inspiration is family. For me, my inspiration is my mother. She has stood by me through everything, especially when it wasn't so easy for her to accept me when I first came out. I actually told her I was going to the White House, and she kind of laughed and said, "Oh, is it for the gay stuff?" And I said, "Yes, it's for the gay stuff, but much, much more." So with that, again, we are very honored to be here today.
And Elena, I think that's a great transition into another question I had, which is something I think all of you have done is interact and interface with culture and tradition, since these are important parts of our community. So I'd love to hear from you first, and then but from all of you about how you have been able to. Well, two questions. First, what are the challenges that you've encountered in incorporating your issues, but also addressing in a respectful manner cultural values and tradition, but also where have you had opportunities? Like where has there been a seamless joining of the two?
I guess I could start with a few of the challenges because Asian Pride Project, we are a multimedia platform. We tell different types of stories through audio work, writing, video, and artwork. And through the collection of some of these stories, we find that it's relatively easier to access stories by LGBT youth, for example. A lot of families have a harder time being in front of the camera, or let alone just talking about experiences about having LGBT children. And I think there's a big cultural barrier there, and there's also a language barrier. So what we're ideally trying to do is have several of our stories in different languages. There seems to be this phenomenon that being LGBT is kind of Western or American or just translated into English. So I think language is kind of one of our challenges on that. But Suma, if you wanted to.
I think to add to it, as Alana was saying, I think one of the biggest challenges is even if we have supportive families and communities, it's great you're gay, but don't be visible. So it's hard to do this type of work because the whole point is really gaining the acceptance of our community as a whole. And, on a more kind of just running this type of thing, we are very resource constrained. We have, full-time jobs and partners and whatnot. So I think, building the community of support, whether financially or just operationally, is really important, and we hope people will come forward.
Sure. And Harry and Rebecca, if you could talk about sort of the challenges or opportunities in dealing with tradition and culture.
I think one of the challenges for what we do in using sports as a vehicle to build up youth is basically acceptance. I think many of the parents, we especially immigrant parents, first-generation parents, who aren't necessarily supportive of this type of work. I think more recently, I think Jeremy Lin has kind of come into the news, and he's also at our level, meaning he's born here and raised here, and good things do come out of what he's done. You know, having gone to school and being a success not only on the courts but as well as in the education realm as well. So I think that has really helped us as an organization, and we have a greater number of children who are willing to be a part of our programs, you know, more so in the last few months because of what Jeremy Lin has done and the example that he set for us as Asian Americans.
Yeah, to add on to that, the biggest challenge for Asians in sports is just that you never saw Asians in sports before Jeremy Lin. And I mean, growing up, we had all the other ones that were from China, but you know, to us it was like the overseas people wasn't similar to us, so we didn't really see them on the same level. So I remember when I helped found the Ladies Sons Women's program of our basketball program, it was very difficult to just get girls like themselves to think of themselves as athletes, like that they can sweat in front of boys. And then if they did want to join, it was another challenge to actually get the parents to be okay with them coming out to weekly practices, going to tournaments, and just not being in school or not being at home. So the cultural barrier there, I still think is very much alive, even though Jeremy Lin is now on the national stage, because we do have several actually younger girls who are in 8th or 9th grade, and their parents won't let them come to practice sometimes just because there actually is no reason. They just don't want them to come to practice. So especially for the female Asian population, it's still very much a challenge nowadays just to make it part of their future opportunities.
And Teresa, I think if you could speak to that as well, but also talk a little bit about, you know, one thing I was struck with both the work that you do is that you're really shaking up the message by challenging preconceptions about who we are and the kinds of things that we do. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a big cornerstone in the Pacific Islander community and in our culture is respect. And it was really difficult trying to tap into spoken word poetry, in which case it really pushes me to speak out about issues that are really important to me, but also issues that are really taboo in my community, like being queer, being working class, being an empowered woman who's speaking in challenging all these ideas that affect me, right? And so to imagine my young people who are constantly told that they have to be quiet and they have to just respect whatever their parents and their elders say and do. I had to straddle between, like, where do I fall in line between not disrespecting my family, not disrespecting my parents, but also knowing that my voice is important and that what I have to say matters. And I still struggle with that, and I'm still shaking up here as my parents are in the crowd, and I'm still, you know, this is a really emotional thing, right? And so yeah, and with public speaking being the #1 fear in America, even over death, that's like a big thing, right? It's like people would rather be in the casket than say the eulogy, like at a funeral. And I try to say that to break the ice. To say that, you know, there's a lot of youth that I work with, they just don't want to say anything. They don't even want to introduce themselves and things like that. And so I know, like, every time I have to step up and speak like this, I know I'm representing more than just myself. That there's a lot of people out there that maybe me coming out is going to make it easier for another young person to come out. Maybe just that much more. Or maybe me speaking about being Samoan and empowered will make another, like, Samoan girl out there be like, you know, like, maybe, you know, like, I could do it too, and things like that. And so that's still a struggle, you know, and that generation gap will always be there. And so my place as I get older is to figure out how to not lose my culture and how to not jeopardize, you know, how I grew up and what I hold as value, and while still doing this work that I feel is so important with our young people and with speaking our stories and having it be told.
I have one more question, but why don't we, I know there are folks in the audience who have questions as well, so please start, if you would like to start lining up, there's a microphone over there, and there's a microphone over there. Don't be shy. I saw Ben, you already had a question lined up? Or maybe not. Well, please, feel free to line up, and so you can ask your questions too. One question I wanted to ask all of you is, I hope you know that you're inspiring all of us with your work and your video. What I'd love to hear from you is who inspires you in the work that you do? Who wants to start? Suma, you want to go?
Sure. I mean, I think it's everyone who's come before me, as cliche as that sounds. I think there's been a lot of, when I moved to New York City, I knew hardly any South Asian gays, and I Googled South Asian gay. And the South Asian Lesbian and Gay Association of New York City popped up. And then through joining that network, I just met a lot of amazing activists, community workers, finance people, doctors, lawyers, engineers who are all committed to this, and their families and their friends and their neighbors. And that's really what drives us, getting that support and getting that oomph to keep going.
I would have to say my 언니's and 오빠들, 동생들, which basically means older sisters, older brothers, younger sisters, younger brothers. Brothers and sisters inspire me. My team members here, Jason, Dennis, Aries, my partner, Jamie inspires me. Ryan inspires me. Most of all, I would have to say one of my best friends who passed away, AJ, inspires me. I'm sorry that she wasn't able to be here today.
Who's next?
Well, my family, who's all sitting in that area of the room. And yeah, I'm kind of like what Sima was saying. I'm always constantly looking back of like who had to lay down on their stomach for me to cross over on their backs for me to be anywhere where I'm going. And so Seth Aina is one of my mentors. He's the one that created the project that I'm now the director of. And so passing it down like that, like our community is so small that I have no other choice but to always look back at who's around me. What does the village consist of that's raising me, right? And so that's my family, that's mentors like Sefa, that's my staff who's currently at work right now in LA, that's my boss, the students that I work with are all my inspirations, and my grandpa, who was supposed to be here, but he got sick at last minute. He's my biggest inspiration, so yeah.
For me, just like you, I can say that I am really encouraged and inspired by the people that we serve. I think the opportunities that we have, particularly are seeing young people, like Rebecca, example, who have grown up and become leaders within the organization. But I think also on a personal level, I think for me, I think what inspires me is actually my faith, or what motivates me is my faith. I think my faith in, as a believer in Jesus Christ, I think that my faith has really encouraged me and caused me to really be to seek to be obedient in just caring for whoever comes into my path.
For me, it's pretty much the same as that. With the Sons organization, it's very familial. Everybody pretty much either hangs out or grew up in Chinatown. So when you get out when you leave the house, you see everybody you know. And we have we basically hang out every other day. And so when I see the girls and the guys that I grew up with, and then into men and women who are off to college, getting careers, doing bigger things, it's very awe-inspiring to see them come from what you knew of them as a freshman in high school to a college graduate. So those are the daily inspirations that come out of that. But I do have to give credit to my mom, who has taught me that if you want to do anything, you have to do it yourself. So that actually has taught me to, I wanted to play basketball. There was no outlet for me to play basketball in the tournaments because they're all either 18 under boys or men. And so when I asked Harry about 10 years ago, can we play in this national tournament? He's like, yeah, if you can get enough girls, do it. I'll give you the resources. And so my inspiration there is that my mom gave me the mental mindset to do what I needed to do to get what I wanted to get done. And then Harry for always giving me trusting me and giving me the resources and the faith to just take it to a direction I want.
We have a couple of questions lined up, so why don't we start over here?
Thank you. I'm Jean Nguyen with Voice of Vietnamese Americans. I congratulate all of you, the champions here and the champions in the audience, and thank you, Eddie and Chris Lu and the White House for doing this. You see the name Voice of Vietnamese Americans, I found it because I feel that we didn't have a voice. But today I heard a lot of voice, very strong, very loud. Thank you. So I'm among the first generations. I came here as a refugee when I was your age, your teens. And now that I felt there's a gap between me and my children, and I would like to ask all of you, would you say something, what can we, the older generations, the first generations do to support you and to make other people who have not found a voice like you to come out? And what would you do from now on? What is the next step that you would go up from here? Thank you.
I can probably answer that in one sentence. If my family personally is incredibly supportive, my twin sisters here, my parents have been amazing. But overall, if our families can support us and accept us and tell their sisters, brothers, cousins, mothers that it's okay to be gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, that's what we need. We need people to speak about this topic.
I guess to address your question of trying to kind of connect with your children who are growing up in a very different environment than you have, is the opposite of that. It's maybe to listen. I think that, my parents, one of them came over from Hong Kong and one was born in Philadelphia, but in Chinatown, which is kind of a whole country in itself anyway. So the mindsets were very, very different growing up. And I actually have twin sisters too, and she's in the audience. And so when we were growing up, we were a handful. We had all these, American ideals, but then we grew up in a very Cantonese Hong Kong household. And it's like my mom could barely understand English when she came over, but she had the patience to listen and not judge. And that kind of allowed us to just grow into whatever our potential was versus any mode that any shape or form she saw in Hong Kong, which wasn't necessarily relevant in America. So.
Go ahead.
I actually would be remiss if I did not mention my family support in what I do, but I think my parents and my siblings, they've always supported what I've done. And I think as your question in regard to how you can reach or care for the next generation, or how do you get respect, I think the big thing is just being able to respect them for who they are. We see that many times in our organization where we don't have many parents involved or even show up to support what we do as an organization, whether it be community service or sports, the sporting aspect. But that's definitely something, just being there for them is probably a huge benefit to your children.
I think in my community, parent involvement is so crucial, but it's also hard because young people aren't allowed to talk and we're not allowed to give our opinions about things. But I think listening to your children is a really big thing, but also children and younger people also empathizing with what our parents have been through in order to get here, it took me a while to make peace with all the struggles that I had with my relationships with my parents, to know that, dang, they had to go through a lot for me to be here, and so we had to kind of meet midway, right? But also for parents to know that the upbringing of your child is not just your sole responsibility, it is a communal effort. It's the school's responsibility, it's your ministers, it's everyone that you live with in your neighborhood, that. It's not just you gave birth to your kids and you raised them, but it's a group effort. You don't fail just because things are going wrong. There's something mechanically wrong if we're not all in balance. And that's what I try to communicate with myself and with my family, is that this is a group effort, there's no pointing blame. There's just, we need to continue to work together in all of this, so, yeah.
I would also say, just try to keep an open mind. you know, in terms of connecting with your child, it's really important to try your best to be there for them through the listening and also the speaking. And when I say listen, don't listen too much to the gossip that's around. You know, when you go to church and you hear groups of Asian women speaking about something, you don't have to always listen to that per se, but take the time to sit down with your child and connect with them and open your heart and feel the love that you have for them through your own experiences with them.
Why don't we go over here, Ben?
Thank you, Gautam, for challenging me to ask a question. Actually, I also have a twin brother, so I just wanted to... The secret AAPI twin cabal is doing its work. Actually, I was giggling back there about how we were using the word queer in the White House, and just the fact that we're able to take a word that has been used against us for so long, and that we've empowered it and are using it here. So that's what I was doing when you when you called on me, Gautam. But I actually wanted to ask a question about the challenges that all of you faced in putting your videos together. I know that many of you have resource issues, just trying to get the work done on a day-to-day, and then the challenges to come here. You know, you've traveled from California, from New York, from Pennsylvania, and I just wanted to be able to hear more about kind of what it took to get you to this point. Because I think you've all done really great work, and I just wanted to congratulate all of you as well. So thank you.
That's such a great question, because in terms of the video, I had to really think that, you know, like, you have to have a lot of resources or connections in order to make such an impactful video that has all these like flashy effects and things like that. And thank goodness I had a friend who's at USC for film who helped me create the video. He's also Samoan, and so putting him out there was also important for me because there's not a lot of PI filmmakers that aspire to do filmmaking, and so he helped me with my video. We filmed it at one of the high schools that I work at in Carson, California, at Carson High School. And we, you know, we're trying to figure out what angle to go with, and I think I'm really satisfied with how the video came out, but in terms of what it took to get here, you know, I know my family spent a lot of money that we probably don't even have or shouldn't even be spending to all be here for these few days, but that's how much support I have and so much love I have in my life that they're taking work off just to like come here. From California, from the Bay Area. I came from LA and things like that, and we're all here till Sunday. And the financial burden that is on this trip was also something to highlight of, like, it's not as easily accessible for us to just take work off and come and speak as a champion of change, trying to be a champion of change, but knowing I still have work to do, I still have other hats that I wear, things like that. And so highlighting that and wanting to thank my family for what it took for y'all to come out here to support me here. And I know like all of us probably have like similar situations, like how do we get the money to just come all the way, you know, here? But we also thank the initiative for allowing this space to even exist. So it's a straddle between, you know, there's always something that we're struggling with, but we're also, you know, succeeding in as well. So.
I think on a personal level, I think the biggest challenge for me was that a year ago on Facebook, I wasn't out. I was deathly afraid of cousins, aunts, uncle, cousin, finding out that I was gay. And so it still makes me shake a little, and it meant so much to me yesterday. I have a grandmother who's extremely sick in India, so the entire family is over there. And my sister called my dad and told him about this event, and he called really happy and was like, congratulations. And I was like, wait, how'd you know? And he's like, oh, you know, your sister told me. So it meant so much that my family is supportive, you know, of me being proud and out, you know, and doing this work. So I think on a personal level, that was my journey.
I would say the actual shooting and editing of the video wasn't too much of a challenge. But in the process of creating the video and kind of going over some of the interviews that we already had, I realized that I had outed my grandmother And it's not because she's LGBT, but because her granddaughter is gay. So that was a bit of a challenge to really think and process and have a talk with her, sit down and tell her that this was going to be a project that would gain this type of national visibility. And at the end of the day, you know, she told me to do whatever it took to get the stories out there. And I really appreciate that, despite the challenges.
Well, creating a video was not just a resource issue for me, it was more of an experience issue. This was actually the first thing I've ever created in a video form. I've done photography before, but never in like, you know, it's a very, very different type of thinking. And my sister actually pushed it on me. She found out about the contest, she told me about it, and we're like, oh, Harry makes like a perfect candidate because he does all this for the community and everybody, you know, loves him and recognizes him. But then we're like, we don't own a camera, we don't have the software. Like, I have my film camera from, you know, high school, and like, but she kept pushing it on me. Eventually, I was like, okay, you know what? We should do this because there's no other more perfect person for it. So then I reached out to my community through the Sons, and I had people give me their equipment. I had people, of course, run away from the camera when I started shooting, but then eventually like warmed up and supported me and, you know, let themselves show through. And then I had a friend who actually wasn't able to make it today because he was sick, and he basically is like a master editor. He does videos as a freelance videographer, and he had me use his like $10,000, $20,000 equipment to help me make the wonderful video that came out of it. And so it's just the support of the community that allowed me to create what I could create in the short period of time. And getting here, I mean, we're from Philadelphia, so it's not as crazy of a hike as the rest of the panelists, but we did decide to, you know, make it an overnight trip just so we wouldn't have to rush in the morning. And, you know, financial burden is always going to be an obstacle on your ladder to success, because especially in the Asian population, we don't always value, you know, certain things. Like the support of my family allowed us to come together for this honorary event, which, you know, it doesn't make money, you know, it doesn't do anything monetary like that. So I know some families who wouldn't have been as supportive, but you know, if you have the people behind you, they push you forward.
Why don't we go back over to this side?
Wow, okay. Thank you for doing what you do. That's great. My name is Phương Lu, and I have one question for you guys. If you could say one sentence to the children and the adults out there that are in that dark place, that are facing the challenges that you guys have managed or going through the process of overcoming, what would that sentence be?
Be who you are and find the support wherever you can find it.
I guess my sentence would be, don't be afraid to try.
I think mine would be, if you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you.
I don't know exactly where you are, but I can totally relate, and that's why I'm still here.
Pressure's on.
I was thinking the aspect of just finding hope wherever you can find it. Find hope in yourself, find hope in God, find hope in friends.
Thank you. What you said was just as inspirational as what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why don't we go over here?
Thank you guys again for coming and for doing what you do. To follow up with the question earlier about connecting older generation with younger generation, I wanted to ask, how is your process in connecting Asian youth with Asian American youth? Because sometimes that could be just two different worlds for them.
Thanks, Rebecca, for the question.
That's my twin sister, sorry.
We actually do that. We go across the board as far as who we care for. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're American-born, if they're foreign-born, if they're lesbian, gay, it doesn't matter. We do what we can to help the person where they are and try to meet their needs. I mean, a lot of it's just mentoring and training and building up the youth.
I think that's kind of the beauty of sports, is that no matter whether you speak English or you speak Fukienese, or you're lesbian, gay, or you're just really bad or really good, like when you're on the court, like especially in a community sports organization, as long as you're giving your all and you're trying and you're hustling, everybody gives you credit for it. So I think that's why, even though with the Suns we do so much more, we do a lot of community service, we do a lot of social activities, just so everybody can expand their, be exposed to different people, and we do our Chinese traditional lion dance performances. Sports is like the great attractor, and then it's also the great equalizer. And so when, I played with people who had, no English at all, but it was fine on the court because you don't need any more than that.
Well, I don't work directly with the Asian American community, but in the Pacific Islander community, I know retention of culture and language is a big thing, especially since more and more as we get older, we're working with and we're becoming part of generations where we're not taught the language of our native language when we're growing up, and the culture is getting more lost as more of us are born and raised here in the mainland. And so working with directly with PEER, the Pacific Islander Education Retention Project at UCLA, that's an aspect of our project, or a component, cultural awareness and things like that, as well as church being a really big foundation in our community, and a big pillar of who we are as Pacific Islander people. Church is where a lot of our retention of culture comes from, because most of the churches that we go to as Pacific Islanders are all done in our native language. All of the activities are shaped around this family, this village type culture, and so that's where a lot of retention of who we are comes from. So it's a straddle. It's hard because a lot of our younger folks are growing up in the American culture, and so trying to figure out how to infuse both while not losing who we are is a struggle, but it's a process as well. So
I think we have, oh, sorry, please.
I was just going to say also, along with cultural awareness, a lot of our younger youth, they're not really reading. They're just sitting in front of the television watching certain types of shows. So for the Asian Pride Project, we're really trying to reach out to different media outlets to have those kids that are also sitting in front of the TV seeing these types of LGBT experiences reflected through the screen or through when they're going through on their social media outlets. So that's kind of the way we're dealing with them.
And just to add, and for the older generation, a key part of what we're trying to do is make it multilingual. So for our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation, that is so important for them to understand.
I think we have time for the last two questions that are over here, so please.
My name is Miyang Bisa. First of all, I would like to say kudos to all of you. I did went through your essays, and I'm not the essays, the video challenge, and I was really moved and very inspired for all the work you guys did. My question here is to Teresa. I'm actually a Pacific Islander from the Federated States of Micronesia. And you're actually the only Pacific Islander up there. So I'm really proud of you of what you've done so far. What is your next, as us coming from, tiny islands from the Pacific all the way to America, to try to pursue our dreams? With all the work you've done, what is the next level of inspiration as being the champions of change today? Are you going to do when you get back to California? And what are you trying to strive for to give back to Samoa one day?
Goodness. Thank you for your question. After my job at UCLA, I've been thinking a lot. I know grad school's somewhere in the distance. I'm going to grad school, Mom and Dad. I promise. They keep asking me, are you going to grad school? I'm going to grad school. You know, but there's so many prospects going on, like, in myself of, like, where I just want to pick up and I want to move back. I want to move to Samoa. I've never lived there. I wasn't born and raised there like my parents were, but I want to get immersed in the culture and I want to learn the language, because I don't know how far I can get with working with like my PI community if there's so many things that I don't know for myself. So that's one of my things I want to do. University of Hawaii was one of the schools I was thinking of going to. There's a lot of things that I see for myself that involve not being here in the States for a while and like just transporting myself somewhere else. Australia, I applied for artist in residency in Australia that I'm waiting to hear back from. And so I don't know, but I know it involves me needing to step out of most of it is just comfort zones. I'm scared. I'm scared of doing something that involves being away from my family. I'm scared of doing something that will put me in more financial instability. But I know in my heart, if I'm happy, if I'm doing exactly what I devoted the rest of my life to anyways, with the people that I want to work with, then I should be okay. But yeah, those are some of the ideas that I have going on in my immediate future. So, thank you.
And our last question.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm a junior at GW. First, I would like to thank you for highlighting that public speaking is society's worst fear, because it's also one of mine. But I was just wondering, you know, all these issues are really important to our community, but is there a defining moment in your life when you realized that you really wanted to be champions for your cause or really wanted to speak up?
I don't think there's necessarily a time for me. I think that I saw the need in the community, and I stepped in, and that's where it's grown.
I think it was the moment where I realized I didn't have any option other than I'm going to college. Like, there was no other option in my household. Like, I'm getting an education, I have to go to college. And that was always the mentality. And then working with young people who don't have those resources or coming from communities where, how can they go to college when they have so many other obligations in their life, was one of the moments for me. And I think also in college, when I was the first year, when I was a freshman, I worked with the AAPI College Access Project. And one of my cousins actually came up on it, and I didn't know she was coming. And so I was reading her essay of why she wanted to come, and I was learning a lot more about her that I didn't even know personally. And I was like, if this is happening in my own family, and I'm working with so many like youth like that I'm so far removed from, like, how can I make this part of not just something I do, but something that I am? Like, this is who I am. And so that's where that dedication and commitment comes from. So.
I think for me, you know, when I was a kid, I was teased a lot for various reasons, for being Asian and kind of being artsy and being different. And for a very long time, I was very quiet about it, and I was kind of silenced. And I held that for a long period of time, and I felt like that silence was kind of suffocating. And it got to a point where one day, again, I had mentioned one of my really close friends, ultimately is this type of silence that resulted in her death. And, you know, I felt like I really couldn't be silent anymore.
I think for me as well, it's personal. It coincides with my realizing I am gay, that accepting it, and then coming out to my family. And it was the toughest thing I've ever had to do. And I've done the Peace Corps, and that was pretty hard. So, you know, so you just realize that, hey, you can do anything. Yeah, and you want to share that with people.
I'm actually so surprised I'm sitting up here on the Champion of Change panel, because I never intended to do what I'm being recognized for. It was just kind of, I saw an opportunity, and I cared about the people that I surrounded myself with. And so I continue to do this every day, every week, just because it needs to get done. And, you know, it's helping so many people. And I mean, the Champions of Change for us is all the leaders in our organization, which we have about like half a dozen to a dozen volunteer leaders who have full-time families, full-time jobs, and they dedicate themselves to coming out to all the meetings, all the practice events, organizing events for like hundreds and hundreds of people. And so a personal thing that I can speak to about wanting to change things, that I'm also like a very stubborn and prideful person. So when growing up, when people were like, oh, you can't do that, I'll be like, why can't I do it? Mm-hmm. And especially, it's kind of a tomboy growing up, so then all these kids would be like, no, you can't play with us. I'm like, why can't I play with you? So it was kind of like, that was my personal, like, I guess the thing in my head that turned on, like, I can do it and I will show you that I can, so.
Thank you all very, very much for your time and your questions. Can we have a round of applause for all of them? And I'd also like us to have a round of applause for all the twin sisters and family members in the audience. And parents. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Eddie.
Thank you, Gautam, for leading an amazing panel. I think that as I reflected back on what these folks were saying, this is just such a phenomenal and historic moment. This is actually our first Champions of Change that features solely on AAPIs. And so it's an exciting opportunity for us to just hear from all of you. And the leadership that you have demonstrated in your communities is an example to all of us, that these champions are not just representing themselves, but they're representing millions of people around this country. And so we're very delighted to hear your stories and your vulnerability with everything that you shared. Let's give them another round of applause as we dismiss them.